Hey everybody, Tag Life Done Free. Hey, today in Starve the Beast 4, we're going to take a look at fear and how it's used on the populace. So if you're interested in how fear is used against us, come on, let's check it out. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God, and your playing small does not serve the world. I want to repeat that. Your playing small does not serve the world. Marianne Williamson. I would argue that fear is the single most powerful of all human emotions. I would challenge all of you to give me just one example of a decision you make that is not based in either pain or pleasure. Just one. I would also argue that fear is a critical emotion in situations where the threat of immediate harm exists. It is also the most debilitating and dangerous emotion when presented unnecessarily. So let's take a look at how fear can be used as a tool to manipulate others and how people in positions of power can effectively use fear as a means of control. See, ever since the Industrial Revolution, humans have enjoyed great protection from the natural world. The fear of freezing to death or starving to death is a fear only a few experience in our modern world. Mankind's fear of the natural world has fallen to its lowest level in all of human history. But unfortunately, that void has been filled with other threats, some real and some imagined. Seneca said, "There are more things likely to frighten us than there are to crush us. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And see, some of these fears could certainly be imaginary, but many are the reaction to narratives created by people in charge. Governments from the very beginning have known the power of fear. When a population is consumed with fear, they are easily manipulated by anyone that promises them safety. No emotion can so effectively remove common sense and reasoning more than fear. The 18th century philosopher Edwin Burke said, "The ruling class for thousands of years have understood the power of intentionally evoking fear in their subjects as a means of social control. Initially, many times, this fear is justified by a real threat. Yet even when these threats are gone, the ruling powers maintain this fear. They know that a fearful population is easier to control. Fear creates unity in the majority, and the unity is to the advantage of the central powers because it allows the majority to pressure the minority." My message to unvaccinated Americans is this. What more is there to wait for? What more do you need to see? We have made vaccinations free, safe, and convenient. The vaccine is FDA approved. Over 200 million Americans have gotten at least one shot. We have been patient, but our patience is wearing thin. Joe Biden. You know, when I was going and researching all of this and was, thinking about how they turned the populace against, they turned the popular against the unpopular, or the vaccinated against the unvaccinated. I came across a headline, I don't know if you remember this, but Kiss's Gene Simmons said to the anti-vaxxers, he said, "You are the enemy." F.A. Hayek said emergencies have always been the pretext on which the safeguards of individual liberty have been eroded. See, the creation of fear in a civilization has been used by the ruling class from the times of ancient Egypt to modern day. They create the crisis and then convince the populace only they have the solution. You remember when Ocasio-Cortez said the world is going to end in 12 years if we don't address climate change? Yeah, and then they immediately introduced new legislation. George Bush said, and I know many of you remember this, this speech inspired me at the time, and I felt great patriotism, but he said, "I hear you, the world hears you, and the people that knock these buildings down will hear from all of us soon, and to an applause, he then invaded Iraq in the search for weapons of mass destruction. But you know what else we got? We got the Patriot Act and the surveillance state. H.L. Mencken said, "The whole aim of practical politics is to keep the populace alarmed and hence clamorous to be led to safety by menacing it with an endless series of hobgoblins, most of them imaginary." Even one of our founding fathers, John Adams, said, "Fear is the foundation of most governments." There are so many examples of the ruling class effectively exploiting the population by using fear. There are many strategies they use. One of them is called false flags, and I know we've all heard this term. But by definition, a false flag is a political or military act orchestrated in such a way that it appears to have been carried out by a party that is not, in fact, responsible. The author Connor Boyce said, "Physical attacks lead to a corresponding increase of trust in political leaders and submission to them. This effect is likely the same whether the attack be surprise, known to by the political leaders yet allowed to happen, or directly orchestrated by these same leaders who stand to benefit from the increased trust and submission." False flag operations work because the general population does not have access to the facts or details. They are reliant on what they are told by the ruling class or the media, and because it's a time of crisis, the populace will follow along because it's what we're programmed to do since kindergarten. Remember the bell? This allows the powers to capitalize on the crisis. Another example of this is repetition. This is a well-known propaganda technique where the ruling class repeats something over and over again. This allows them to perpetrate fear and normalize lies. By repeating phrases and images over and over again, the ruling class will paralyze an entire population with fear. You remember the Nazi propaganda leader Joseph Goebbels? Well, he stated that it would not be impossible to prove with sufficient repetition and psychological understanding of the people concerned that a square is in fact a circle. George Orwell said, "Political language is designed to make lies sound truthful and murder respectable and to give an appearance of solidity to pure wind." With the advent of the internet, the ruling class now has the ability to install fear in the masses to an extent never seen in human history. But guys, this is also the solution for freedom-minded, self-thinking Americans. We as a people have never in history had access to more information. The philosopher Voltaire stated that those who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities. So you don't want to be a person convinced of lies and absurdities? We must become truth seekers. We realize that when listening to the ruling class and the media, it is our duty to question the validity of each claim. We have to understand that the ruling class may not always have our best interest at heart. Questioning these claims is our duty. None of us, in my opinion, have the ability to fix the world by ourselves. We can, however, remove the unnecessary fear that contribute to so much pain and slavery in the world. You have heard me often say that the first step to freedom is to take responsibility for your actions. But we must also take responsibility for our beliefs. Taking responsibility for your beliefs may be the single most important thing you can do in your journey to living free. Stanley Milgram said, "The disappearance of a sense of responsibility is the most far-reaching consequence of submission to authority." Now, I know some of you may be thinking, well, not us, not today. Those are the things of history. Most civilizations will not recognize the situation they're in until it's too late. So I thought I would just pull some headlines. Let's look at some COVID headlines from 2020. They said, stay home, stay safe. Don't go to the beach, right? The waves could give you COVID. Don't eat chicken or other meat because that can give you COVID. Be sure those preparing and serving your food are wearing their face shields upside down, like the dog cones, right? To keep their breath directed up, because again, this could give you COVID. Leaving your packages on the porch, don't touch them. Leave your groceries in the car. And when you take them out, wash them right away, right? Because they can give you COVID. Stay away from animals and pets. Stay away from people. Cover your faces, right? So let me get this right. We're supposed to be afraid of going out, the beach, meat, servers, packages, groceries, pets, and people. All of these items were our real headlines from 2020, and these are just a few of them. After 2 years of the scare, the true risk should be alarming. Do you think people have settled down? Have they become less scared? The constant campaign of fear from the news media and the government can only be about one thing: control. I don't know if you remember it or not, but public health scientists actually encouraged Pfizer to delay the release of the COVID vaccine until after the election, which Pfizer did. So our health and our safety clearly wasn't their top priority. Which companies can be open and which cannot? How many people are allowed in a room? We were told that we must inject the thing into our bodies, and if we didn't, we were unpatriotic and one of the enemies. We were even told what freedoms we were allowed to have. We can stop the spread in 2 weeks, they said. The poke works 100%. Wait, no it doesn't. We were told that masks works. Wait, no they don't. Hold on. Yes they do, but it has to be 2. They said they needed 80% to take the poke, only after saying they needed 50. The doctors and nurses are the finest America has to offer, they said, right before firing them because they wanted to say in what happened to their body. Does anyone find it interesting that now natural immunity can only be had with the poke? Now I recognize things change, but if years and years of science have changed this much, should we be betting our health on it? There's a 1955 book out there called They Thought They Were Free, which talks to normal German citizens about why they didn't stand up to Nazism. In the book, one conversation really stood out to me, and this is what the German had to say. He said, "One doesn't see exactly where or how to move. Believe me, this is true. Each act, each occasion is worse than the last, but only a little worse. You wait for the one great shocking occasion, thinking that others, when such a shock comes, will join you in resisting. Somehow, but the one great shocking occasion, when tens or hundreds of thousands will join you, never comes. That's the difficulty. If the last and worst act of the whole regime had come immediately after the first and smallest, thousands, yes millions, would have sufficiently shocked. But, of course, this isn't the way it happens. In between comes all of the hundreds of little steps, some of them impersonable, each of them preparing you not to be shocked by the next, and one day too late your principles, if you were ever sensible of them, all rushing upon you. The burden of self-deception has grown too heavy, and some minor incident collapses it all at once, and you see that everything has changed. Now you live in a world of hate and fear, and the people who hate and fear do not even know it themselves. When everyone is transformed, no one is transformed. Do you remember a time when people lived in hate and fear? Think hard. Based on the science, what additional liberties are you willing to concede? You want to starve the beast? Take responsibility for your beliefs. Become a truth seeker, and don't live in fear. Because at the end of the day,